Good afternoon and welcome to our Jobs Outlook. My name is Chris Konetsky and I'm the president of Business Publications Corporation, which of course produces the Business Record. Our senior staff writer, Kathy Bolton, has assembled a fantastic panel of experts who are going to explore the job market, what it's going to look like in 2026 and beyond. I can't go any place without talking about jobs and workforce. I'm sure you can't either. A lot of things happening in that space. We're devoting a lot more coverage to that. That's one of the areas that Kathy focuses in on. And so I know today's conversation is going to be great. We can't do conversations like this and about the future of work without the support of our sponsors, who of course share a commitment to strengthening Iowa's workforce and our economy. HR professionals play a vital role in ensuring organizations have the right people, skills, and resources to have a dynamic workforce. And since 2020, Dentons Davis Brown has proudly sponsored the Business Record's Human Resources Professional of the Year Award, which we created to elevate an exceptional HR leader from Central Iowa, who is recognized not only for their achievements within their company, but also for their contributions to the HR profession and the community. Joining us today to talk a little bit more about Dentons and help introduce this year's honoree is Lori Chesser. Welcome, Lori.
Thank you, Chris. I'm so pleased to be here to present the Dentons Human Resources Professional of the Year Award. At Dentons, we are honored to serve employers and support HR professionals in their critical work. We are pleased to have local, national, and international resources to assist you. Our team helps craft policies, drafts contracts, and bonus structures, navigates privacy, HIPAA, OSHA rules, advises on immigration, I-9 and tax compliance, addresses all the issues the mobile workforce presents today, and provides a sounding board for those tough calls that HR makes every day. We know the challenges that you face, and we stand in awe of the difference an outstanding human resources professional makes in the workplace. And one such amazing person is the recipient of the 2025 Dentons Human Resources Professional of the Year Award, Kristi Burma. Kristi serves as Executive Vice President and Chief Human Resources Officer at Athene, where she has spent the past 12 years shaping the company's people strategy. She oversees human resources initiatives across Athene's 10 locations in the United States, Bermuda, Canada, and Japan, guiding policies and programs that support the company's growth and culture. Rana Baranobis, Senior Vice President of Human Resources at Athene, and the colleague who nominated Kristi, describes her impact by saying, Kristi's legacy is one of redefining human resources as both a strategic driver of business outcomes and a moral compass within organizations. As the top HR executive for a market-leading company, she has directly contributed to Athene's growth, shaped its culture, and transformed it into one of the most generous organizations in the state. Under Kristi's leadership, the Athene Charitable Foundation has increased annual giving from a cumulative $3.6 million over 9 years to $4 million annually since 2022. In 2024 alone, Athene employees volunteered more than 8,500 hours in the community, a 143% increase during her tenure. Her commitment to community investments has also helped bring transformative projects to life. The Athene North Shore Recreation Area at Easter Lake Park, opened in May 2024, is now recognized as the most universally accessible park in the nation. Athene has also supported major initiatives, including the Athene Pedestrian Bridge and a $1 million commitment to ChildServe's Athene Therapy Gym, which will expand rehabilitation capacity from 60 to 600 children annually. Kristi's leadership exemplifies how human resources can be both a strategic force for business success and a catalyst for community change. Thank you, Kristi, for all you do. And again, congratulations. I am so proud to be able to honor your work.
Well, thank you, Lori, and thank you for this wonderful award. I'm not sure if you can see it. It's hard to hold up, but afraid I'll break it. But thank you very much to you and to Dentons for initiating and sponsoring this award. Thank you to the Business Record for continuing your leadership in the community. And finally, thank you to Rana Baranobis. I consider myself very lucky to work with someone of her caliber and for her nomination. It's an incredible honor to accept this, not just for me, but for everyone at Athene who believes that doing good in our community and doing well as a business are deeply connected. And I have three things I really want to share about this. The first is about community involvement. Community involvement isn't something extra, it's just part of our DNA here. This year, during the United Way campaign, we asked the question, what's your drive? My response was our employees. In 2024 alone, we volunteered more than 8,500 hours, which she said was a 143% increase. It's not just a number to me, that's thousands of moments of compassion, teamwork, and pride. And how does that work? That my second point is this is a unique blend of the future of HR for me. My role at Athene is a gift. My parents raised me to give back at an early age. Fast forward a lot of years, and I feel so fortunate to be leading communications, CSR, and employee engagement. All of these are a way to round out my HR role in such a unique way. And it's honestly not work, it's just fun for me. And the third piece is our employees. Our employees consistently tell us that giving back is the single highest significant impact on our annual engagement survey. And that's no accident. When people feel connected to something bigger than themselves, when they see the difference their company makes in the world, it fuels loyalty, happiness, and a sense of purpose. Satisfaction and giving creates a cycle that strengthens our culture and our community. So for me, this work is deeply personal. I'm proud to be associated with the good things that we do. It's proof that business can be a force for good, and that when employees are empowered to give, they don't just change their community, they transform their workplace too. So thank you for recognizing me and for recognizing the power of that connection. I'm truly blessed.
Congratulations again, Kristi, and thank you to Dentons for recognizing our 2025 HR Professional of the Year. Kristi, I serve on a board with Rana, and when she gives the stamp of approval to somebody, that carries a lot of weight. So I know seeing her name in there meant a lot to folks as we were selecting this year's honoree. But congratulations again, and congratulations for all the work that you do for our community.
Thank you.
You can read a lot more about Kristi and some of her impact in the business record. There's a QR code on the screen. You can also find that at businessrecord.com. It'll be in the business record as well. We're going to go ahead now and get into our program. We've got less than an hour for today's panel, and we're going to barely be able to scratch the surface of things. You're in great hands. Senior staff writer Kathy Bolton is always writing about workforce and jobs. Her world revolves around that. She's got some great questions for a great panel today, so I'm going to turn it over to her, and she'll take you the rest of the way.
Thank you, Chris, and a big thank you to the panelists who are joining us today. They include Ben Ayers. He's a senior economist for Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company. Tessa Bro, she's director of liberal arts and career services at Iowa State University. Jamie Carlson, she's chief human resources officer for the Iowa Clinic. Kathy Jablinski, market principal at Manpower. Stephen Shapaw, executive director of secondary education at the West Des Moines School District, and Georgia Van Gundy, who is deputy director for Iowa Workforce Development. If you have questions for the panelists as we're going on, feel free to write them in the chat and we'll try to answer them. Or if there's questions you want me to ask them, do the same thing and we'll try to get those questions answered. As Chris said, we don't have a lot of time, so we're going to jump right in. Ben, you recently described Iowa's current job market as stagnant. Can you explain why you use that description, and do you expect that stagnation to continue into 2026?
Yeah, thanks, Kathy, and I appreciate being here on the panel today. You know, unfortunately, I have to be the bearer of bad news. That's really what jumps out when you look at the numbers across the state. The latest jobs data we have now is for the end of August. And when you go back to August of 2023, we actually have a lower level of employment across the state in Iowa than we had 2 years ago. And that Iowa's the only state, unfortunately, that can say that over the past 2 years. Every other state has posted at least some modest growth, and some of the states have increased 3 or 4% from an employment perspective over the past 2 years. So, you know, clearly the state is falling behind from an overall employment perspective. And I think just stagnation is probably the best way to describe that, because there's just not a lot of overall job activity happening across the state, especially when compared to some of the other areas in the country.
Explain a little more by what you mean by lower level of employment.
Yeah, so you know the Bureau of Labor Statistics comes out and they say, you know, we estimate how many employees are in each sector where we are, and according to their calculations, they have about 2,000 less employed workers in the state compared to what we had 2 years ago. And that's not a lot in the grand scheme of things, but certainly there's a lot of other growth happening, and there not a lot of that's happening within the state.
Do you have any thoughts on why the lower job growth, the lower labor growth?
I think most of it comes back to the labor supply. And it's really hard to hire workers if you can't find workers. And we know that demographics in the state are working against us in that capacity. We have an aging population. More and more people are retiring and leaving the workforce, and there's just not enough new entrants to make up for that. And so what we're seeing is that many employers are either not moving into the state, not adding the workers, or they're just finding new ways to increase their productivity without adding new workers. And so because of that, we're just not seeing an overall increase in job growth.
So one of our viewers is asking if the decrease is consistent across all the industries, which sort of dovetails on what I was going to ask you. What sectors in Iowa are showing strength or have some momentum, and which ones are showing weaknesses?
Sure. Yeah, you look at this year in particular, construction has seen some increase in job growth, so there has been some increased activity within that sector. Healthcare, always a source of strength, both nationally and within Iowa. There's just a natural occurrence as you see the aging of the population, and you have more healthcare needs. On the other end of the spectrum, you have a sector like manufacturing that's been declining for several years now and seeing contraction in the total number of workers in that space. Industries are shifting more to automation and not adding more workers. And another area is finance. We're not seeing any increase there either. Things have declined for several years. So, add it all together, it's not much overall growth, but there certainly is some nuance to which sectors are growing and which ones are falling behind.
Okay, thank you. Georgia, Iowa has over 50,000 job openings on its website. And in August, there was over 65,000, almost 66,000 Iowans who were unemployed. Can you talk about what the state's doing to try to connect those employers with those people seeking employment?
Yeah, Kathy, thank you. And thanks for the opportunity to be on here. After the pandemic, the governor had Iowa Workforce Development start a business engagement division within our department. And we have business engagement consultants across the state who are working in communities every day with our economic developers, our chambers, and specifically with our businesses to really understand what are the challenges that they have and how can we align them with our American Job Centers for people who are looking for jobs, or just really kind of understand what their barriers are and how can we connect them to break down those barriers and bring in some best practices. So we really have now people in the state with boots on the ground who are connecting with the chambers and businesses and economic developers to do that. We also have our rapid response team. So there have been a number of layoffs for manufacturers within our state and other areas as well. We do have some manufacturers that are hiring, but so when these events occur, we have a rapid response team who will go on site, really analyze the skill set of those who are being laid off and make connections to employers that we know are hiring. So we're trying to connect those people to other employers to make sure that we keep them here within the state of Iowa, because that's important to keep them here. We have our American Job Centers, and that is where people are going in who are job seekers. They are signing up on Iowa Works into our system. We sit down, we help them with the different job opportunities that are open in not only their area, but statewide, and really help to connect them with those businesses. And then we also hold a lot of hiring events around the state as well. So there's a lot that our department is doing around the state to really connect businesses with people who are looking for jobs.
Do you have any anecdotes about some of the successes the rapid response team has had?
Well, we do have we have some successes to where we've had manufacturers who have laid off individuals, and then we've been able to connect them who are with manufacturers that are hiring. In fact, we have a manufacturer in a part of the state right now that we know are looking for 100 employees. We have a manufacturer that's going to be opening up in Cedar Rapids that will be looking for some employees as well. So that's where it's really on us to keep a pulse for what businesses are doing so that we can help make those connections. So we have had some good results from that.
Good. When you were at the Iowa Business Council, one of the things you had going on was helping the state's largest employers connect with educators. And if we need
Yep.
more workers in the workforce, some of those people are probably our young people coming up through high school. Can you tell us a little bit about that and why it was important to do, and sort of, or is that something you're also doing at Iowa Workforce Development?
Yes, we are doing a workforce development, and why it is important is to really make that connection with students when they're in high school to help them understand what are the jobs that are within Iowa. You know, ABI just did a manufacturing tour where they had people come to different manufacturers all around the state and really learn about manufacturing and all the cool things that there are to do in manufacturing in the state of Iowa. So it's really helping, you know, connect students with what those opportunities are. I always tell the story. My dad was an engineer and I had the opportunity to help him land survey. So I was holding the range pole. So when it came to where he was said, oh, you know, when you go to college, you should be an engineer. And I'm like, I don't want to hold the range pole, you know, so you just know what you know. And so it's at the business council, you know, the employers really were talking about how can we find more people to hire? How do we build that pipeline? And that's why we wanted to make those connections. So at Workforce Development, we're working in communities to help engage employers to provide more work-based learning. So again, that is getting students on site and working with employers, helping them understand the exciting careers that are here within Iowa, and hopefully making that connection and moving them into them. We're also helping, you know, some of the conversation that would take place is businesses don't know, you know, who to talk to in education. Education doesn't know who to talk to in the businesses. So one of the things that we're doing around the state right now is really working with communities to figure out how do you build a sustainable infrastructure that sort of brings everybody together, both business and education and others in the hiring space, to make those long-term connections, no matter if your HR person changes in the business or the person changes in the school district. So we're really trying to help break down those barriers, but it's very important to make those connections with students early.
And that's a good segue into talking about what's going on in the West Des Moines School District and others in the state. Stephen, sort of give us some background on West Des Moines Career and Technical Education Program and why the district thought that was important to add.
Absolutely. So it's fitting to follow Georgia because Abby Tibbetts and Deborah Fox from Iowa Workforce Development have been absolutely instrumental partners with West Des Moines Schools in the work we're doing to get students exposure to registered apprenticeships, to learning more about quality pre-apprenticeships, making connections between us and the state, even when it comes to work-based learning and industry recognized credentials. So Iowa Workforce Development is definitely a really strong partner to K-12 education. And George, I'm really just blessed to have Deborah and Abby as resources to work with, especially as I take on the privilege of supporting our CTE programming here in West Des Moines schools. So in 2024, West Des Moines opened up a brand new CTE facility on the Valley Southwoods campus, costing over $28 million. I see Brad Bucks on the call, trying to keep up with Waukee and the Apex Center that they have out there in Waukee. It's a wonderful facility that gives students access to hands-on learning and opportunities to gain skills that will hopefully not just be lifelong skills, but introduce them to opportunities that can lead to a really quality living wage that can support a family, right? So we're talking about pathways, we're talking about opening doors. And so it's one thing to have survey level courses, but it's another thing to go and make the financial commitment in providing students access to a facility that lets them go beyond just an introductory course or a survey course, but actually have the space and the equipment to do more advanced work. I just was out in Ankeny at the John Deere facility recently, and they were telling me that our students who are in the apprenticeship program in welding come very highly skilled when it comes to the welding techniques and having that technical capability. So I'm hearing from the business partners that we're working with when I'm doing site visits that we don't just have the teachers in the facilities, but we really have programs that have been developed really intentionally with our partnerships like Iowa Workforce Development to make sure we're equipping students with the skills to take advantage of these awesome opportunities. We have programming in auto, we have programming in carpentry and welding and construction, engineering. We're looking at adding manufacturing. So there's a lot that's happening, and we're constantly evaluating what are the new programs or revisions that we need to make so that we're giving students all the access they deserve.
Delve a little deeper into what do you mean by you're thinking about adding manufacturing? What would that look like? And is that a request from students or from the business community?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we think about the programs that we offer, West Des Moines has a pretty extensive program of studies process that we utilize to look at what courses are we making available to our students. And so we have a number of stakeholders that we get input from. So we get input from our students, obviously, that's why we exist. We get input from our teachers who are immersed every day working with students, attending conferences to learn best practices and to improve their skill and expertise. We're talking to families, we're talking to community partners. So, in addition to Iowa Workforce Development, our chambers of commerce have been really good partners. So I spend a lot of time with the West Des Moines Chamber. Meredith Murphy over there is a really wonderful partner to us, talking about what are they seeing at the chamber in terms of what are the needs that the community has? What is popular in the state of Iowa? What's popular in central Iowa? One of the things I would love for part of our legacy to be is that we're generating a workforce that stays in the metro and is giving back to our economy and helping our communities continue to flourish. So we absolutely have to tap into those resources and connections so that we're, again, positioning our students for optimal success. In terms of manufacturing, we work with Project Lead the Way. And so Project Lead the Way is a well-known entity that puts together resources and training for staff. And so we're actually signing up a teacher to get 80 hours of professional learning so that they can be equipped to teach our students these manufacturing skills and competencies to prepare them for options down the road.
Stephen, can you tell us a little bit about enrollment in the program? You started in 2024. What was it and what is it now?
Yeah, so we've had CTE programming for a really long time. The facility has just allowed us to expand what we're doing in terms of CTE. And so our auto shop program is still housed out of Valley High School. That didn't migrate over to Valley Southwoods. And we have a lot of family consumer sciences classes that are offered at Valley High School still. Our CNA program is housed at Valley High School. So we really have two campuses offering really robust CTE programming. In terms of our engineering tech classes, other than auto, we have over 600 kids that are coming and going during the day at that facility alone. And so we've been really thrilled to see the interest grow. And I just feel blessed to work in a school district where we have a superintendent and a board of directors that when they see there's a need, they say, yes, let's make that happen. So we're building right now, our carpentry classes are designing residential units so that we can build residential electrical units for students to do electricity work at a residential level. And so our kids are actually building the framing of that through our carpentry program. And the district is working on rerouting electricity so that we can make that skill available. And now, because we're doing that, the next conversation is, do we need to get into corporate electricity, right? What's the next step, right? So we're just always continuing to think about how can we evolve and make our offerings more well-rounded.
You mentioned an internship. One of your students or a couple of them were doing welding at John Deere. How often do students actually go out into workplaces and do things like that?
Yeah, so registered apprenticeships are a really fascinating opportunity for students. So in the spring, we start recruiting students. They go through an interview process with our employer partners. And if they are selected, they're committing to 2,000 hours of work with the registered apprentice partnership. And so depending upon who our employer partner is, they might be doing second shift hours. They might be doing lots of weekend hours. A lot of our students will work full-time over spring break, winter break, any days off we have from school, and then they work with their employers to squeeze in as many hours as they can fit within the week. So the employers are really gracious to work with our students because they want them to be high school students and get that well-rounded experience. But there is that really high expectation of 2,000 hours of time that's being committed. So what we tend to see is junior year students interview for that experience, and then we get the students enrolled into that registered apprenticeship senior year. And then when they graduate, they continue the registered apprenticeship. And then when they get through with that, then they can get into a trade full time. It's really awesome, but it is a really big commitment. And because that commitment is so large, and we're really proud of the number of kids who are prepared for that and are able to make that commitment work. We've been working with Iowa Workforce Development on how do we build out a quality pre-apprenticeship program. And so that's something we're beginning to engage with our employer partners with this year to talk about for the future.
Great information. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jamie, so when we look at Iowa Workforce Development's job postings for October, a lot of the listings were in the medical field. Registered nurses, they had 4,800 listings. Physicians had over 1,300. And I suspect that employers like Iowa Clinic have found it challenging to find some to fill some of those positions. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Iowa Clinic, and then tell us about what positions you found the most challenging to fill and why that might be.
Great. Well, thank you for having us be part of this panel. It's been very interesting already, and I'm familiar with some of the things that you guys already talked about. But the Iowa Clinic is an independent, physician-owned, multi-specialty practice based here in Des Moines. And what makes us unique in our market, in the healthcare market in Des Moines, is that we are locally owned by our physicians. And so that I think is kind of our secret sauce to some of this stuff. But we practice at 15 different locations. Our physicians practice in 45 different specialties, and we employ about 1,300 employees. So most of those employees are kind of in the clinical space, right? Physicians, CMAs, registered nurses. But then we have a lot of support positions too. People don't always understand that. We have analytics and IT and people to check you in. So we don't just look for clinical people. Over the last 6 months, I would say clinical roles have been the most challenging. So registered nurses, as you mentioned, certified medical assistants, they're trained specifically to deliver healthcare in a outpatient practice. And so that is a specific role that we have a lot of need in. And so that's been challenging. And then also some of our physician specialties. So we have been very successful in recruiting primary care physicians to the Iowa Clinic. Some of the specialties, it's more challenging because not only do we have, healthcare in Iowa is difficult, but there's a national shortage of physicians and of clinical nurses, et cetera. And so it's not unique to Iowa. So that is our challenge, right? We have a need, as you mentioned, with your numbers. The job market for healthcare is showing strength in that we have a lot of jobs. What we have here is a talent problem. We don't have enough qualified people to fill those jobs. So that is, one of the challenges. And then we are competing for the same talent in our market as large health systems, other employers in the area. So it's very dynamic, I think is how I defined the market. And we have to be very creative and find different ways to recruit and retain talent.
Talk a little bit about how you are creating, maybe what you're doing now that maybe you didn't do 2 or 3 years ago to attract people.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I mentioned certified medical assistants, we have a great need for certified medical assistants. And unfortunately, the programs in town have not been filling all of the space in those educational programs. And so they might, a couple years ago, I think they graduated 7 in our market. And there are a lot of people like us that need that talent. And so that pipeline was not working for us. And so we had to think differently and we had to find ways to grow our own talent. We have a lot of employees that love working at the Iowa Clinic, and they might be in a front desk role, but they want to grow and grow their career and gain more skills. And so we created our own CMA training program. So we partner with an online institution that gives kind of the credential piece of it, but then we have a staff that does the hands-on training. And we've had great success with that. It's so rewarding to see employees that love it here grow here. And it's been very, very successful. So it's a lot of time and takes a lot of resources to do that well, but we've been able to do that. And like I said, it's very rewarding, but we're not big enough to be able to grow our own and meet all of our needs. So while it's helpful and it's rewarding, it's not one thing. So the other thing that we have been doing is partnering with local high schools to expose students to healthcare at a younger age. So what Stephen is doing in West Des Moines, our relationship has been with Waukee through Apex for the last few years. And so we provide a lot of educational opportunities for students to come to our facility, and our new facility in Waukee that has an outpatient surgery center and Iowa's first outpatient cath lab. And so we're able to show students kind of that new way to deliver care and get them exposed to that. And we've had very good success with that. And then we also have students that have gone through programs similar to what Stephen was describing. They call it school to work. So we have 3 students that are coming and working on our team for like 3 hours a day from October through the end of the year. And we've had great success with that. We've had somebody in marketing, but now we're doing it kind of more in the clinical areas where you don't need a certification, but we can get them exposed to that. So that's something that has been helpful. That's a long-term pipeline, but it's worth it. We also very much prioritize being a site for medical students, advanced practice providers to do their clinical rotation. So we encourage our physicians and our advanced practice providers to be a site where they can work side by side with these medical students. It's required that they have that, and sometimes they have a hard time finding those opportunities. So we love that. And when we do that, when they're here, maybe in medical school, they're going to go on and be a specialist of some kind. So there's a journey. But if we get them here and they have a good experience here at the Iowa Clinic, that is a pipeline that our provider recruiters use to connect with them, because they go off outside of Iowa, they do their training and they become a neurosurgeon, and they want to come back to Iowa. So because they had that connection with us, they're able to do that. And we've seen very good success with that. We're not opposed to recruiting people in their first year of medical school. Like, we want them to come in. We think our model, being physician owned, is something that providers really like. And so that is some ways that we do that. And I would say the last thing we do is, as Kristi was talking about, is we engage with our community. So not only do we go out to career fairs, but we volunteer, and that's part of our DNA. And we want to give back to our community. And so our employees love doing that. We're involved in our community. We like to share that and tell our story through social media so people can see, oh, that's what that organization's like. So that's been really helpful. And kind of how we're trying to navigate this dynamic workforce.
Thank you. That was all very fascinating. Thank you. So Kathy, we were emailing back and forth recently, and you thought that one of the biggest challenges right now is the lack of jobs versus the lack of talent, which is sort of opposite of what we're hearing. Can you sort of explain what you meant by that?
Yes. And both are challenging for sure. You're hearing that from the panelists, and I do not want to discredit. It is challenging to find quality candidates as well. So Manpower Group is a global workforce solution provider. We fill contingent roles as well as direct hire roles from soup to nuts, really, in the types of positions that we fill. On the contingent side, a lot of our roles support manufacturing, transportation and logistics, call center, admin, um, entry level accounting, those types of roles. So the manufacturing layoffs and impact has been significant for our particular business and what we're seeing. So Manpower Group completes an employment outlook survey every quarter. It's a global survey. We can narrow it down to the US and then by regions. So 41% of the US employers are saying that they're struggling to find quality candidates. So there is still a skill gap that exists. But I'll tell you locally, the job seeker desperation has definitely been palatable. In Georgia, you're probably hearing it from your staff at Iowa Works as well, just the desperation for jobs. Again, massive layoffs that have happened over the past year, past 2 years that have impacted the manufacturing, finance, and insurance sectors. Agriculture is definitely impacting availability of jobs. So we're always looking at how do we upskill candidates. So maybe they're coming in with picking, packing experience, assembly. How do we help upskill them to move into a machine operator position? And just looking at those opportunities from the healthcare sector, we definitely are hearing those that exited healthcare and want to go into call center because of stress levels within the healthcare industry. So, overall, I think from the U.S. net employment outlook is stagnant. It's down from last quarter. It's down year over year. But there's a huge chunk of employers, 42%, that said, we don't plan to change our staff levels next quarter. We're not hiring, we're not decreasing, or just holding steady. And they cited the reason their top challenge that was impacting their hiring is the economic uncertainty. And we definitely feel that in Iowa. We feel that with our clients and just the job seekers that are calling in that are saying, no one's hiring. We're hearing this over and over and over again. So on the positive side of that is we also have seen a slowdown in job seekers jumping, that job abandonment, jumping from job to job, which is positive for employers just to settle down. Because during COVID, it was very painful for all employers with that type of rapid transition. So we are seeing that, doing a lot of coaching of just, please look in the job market before you're making any major decisions around your employment. But overall, yes, we're still seeing that pain here in Iowa of just the lack of maybe manufacturing, warehouse distribution jobs available.
When employers do have an open job, what kind of skills do they want workers to have that maybe the workers don't necessarily have?
Well, it's a combination. There's definitely some hard skills that they're looking for. If it's a machine operator, for example, they need to have, machine operation experience, skilled technical, definitely opportunities there. The maintenance techs, the field technicians are very much in demand, continue to be very competitive roles. On the flip side is the soft skills. That is still a huge area of need, that ability to, be able to evaluate information, data, make decisions, strong, positive customer service is still needed. But where I see the gap continuing to widen is the technology gap. Um, whether it's even applying for a job, that digital illiteracy is there. But then you add in the layer of AI, and it is moving at such a rapid pace that those tech advancements, and someone mentioned, manufacturing is moving to automation. So that tech fluency is super important, as well as just that emotional intelligence, agility, and then I think too that willingness to be that lifelong learner. So willing to learn the technology or the new processes is very important. So, um, I think still that skill gap and but the soft skills is important as well.
Okay, thank you. So Tessa, we talked about high school students. Now let's talk about sort of what the job market is like for college graduates. I've been reading that that's cooled, that there's not as many jobs available. A lot of it because of the economic uncertainty and because AI has taken up some of those entry-level jobs. So your recent graduates from ISU, did they find jobs, and how does that compare for the last couple years?
Absolutely. So, as Kathy mentioned, I serve as the director for the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. Iowa State has a decentralized model for career services where each academic college has its own unit, but we all are tasked with collecting career outcomes data. So that's a big piece of what we do. So we follow up with our graduates as they are graduating, but then through 6 months after graduation to follow up and ask where their first destination is after Iowa State. So I've compiled a whole bunch of numbers for us, and we have seen a slight dip in career outcomes numbers. There is a slight lag in what I'm able to share because we do that 6 months follow-up, and a reporting year for us starts with summer and goes through the spring semester. So the most recent published data for us is 23-24. So I looked at the last 3 years leading up to that point, and our 24-25 data will be published in early 2026. But for 23-24, our overall positive, so employment or continuing education rate across all colleges and degree levels, so bachelor's, master's, doctoral, and our professional Doctor of Veterinary Medicine program, our overall positive percentage rate was 93.6%, which is still very strong. So we're still proud of that number. But for 22-23, it was 94.1, and 21-22, it was 96%. So that's been a 0.5 percentage to 1.9% pointage, 1.9% decrease across those years. Just for 23-24, that breakout of 93.6% positive outcomes, 15.5% of our students went on to continuing education, which might be those medical schools, or it could also be joining the law enforcement academy. So that contains many nuances. But then 78.1% of our graduates from that year did find employment. And then we ask students within that employment, how was it professional employment? So were you using your degree to procure a job that is something that you were hoping to see after your studies? And that number was 91.5. So we're also very proud of that number. But that does say that unemployment is baked into some of these statistics. So there are students who aren't able to find necessarily what they were looking for, but did find a job that would have counted as an employment outcome. One other metric I wanted to share of that shows kind of where the market's at is our career fair registration. So each semester we host 5 to 6 large scale events. And so I compared between fall 24 and fall 25, and across the whole season of career fairs in fall 24, we had 1,142 employer registrants. And then this fall, we had 1,103 registrants, which is a 3.4% decrease. For a while, honestly, we were worried that was going to be a bit lower. Our registrations were very slow. We felt that employers were slower to commit to attending. And I think that comes back to some of this hesitancy and stagnation and worry about just where are things going, because certain employers don't think it's worth attending a career fair if they're not going to have internship positions or full-time positions to offer. And so we really saw that delay of waiting to register to know what would be available. I did also run job postings, but I was pleasantly surprised. I did not expect it, but from fall 24 to fall 25, we did actually see an increase in internship and co-op postings on our SciHire career platform system. And that's also true for full-time postings. As I said, I wasn't expecting that, but my opinion is that some of that increase is because in summer of 24, we made a technology platform change from a different vendor. We changed vendors for SciHire. And so that summer of 24 into fall was a slow reacclimation and getting employers used to the new system. So I think that's honestly probably why fall 24 was a little bit lower on those posting numbers. So That was a lot of numbers, but yes, we are seeing a slowing down, and especially just anecdotally when it comes to student advising appointments, we do see students stressed about the market and worrying about if there will be opportunities.
Okay, thank you. I do have one question. When the students graduated, are you hearing back from students, even though they may not have taken the survey, but are people in the career services hearing from students frustrated about not being able to find a job and asking for advice, and what are you hearing from those calls?
Yeah, we do serve alumni, so Iowa State alumni are welcome to reach back out to their career services office, and we'll provide that advising and coaching. So yes, we do have, I think this fall, I didn't run those numbers, but anecdotally, we
Yep.
have seen an increase in alumni reaching out for support. And I think it's been probably a slower process for finding jobs. So as I said, we follow up through the 6 month. I didn't crunch our at-grad 3 month and 6 month numbers, but I think it's been a slower, it's taking more applications. It's taking a longer time to secure than it might have been historically. So yeah, a little bit of frustration, or just, it takes a lot of resiliency to get through a job search. So yeah, helping them through that process.
So the upcoming graduates, how do you get that information to them that maybe once they graduate, they're going to have a tough time? And what things are you telling them that maybe they could do that might give them a leg up on other graduates, say from Iowa?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a fine balance. We want to be realistic with them about what the economy is, but also at the same time, no matter what the economy is doing, it doesn't change the tools that are in their toolbox. So networking is important. Getting out there and learning about your field is important. Writing tailored application materials, resumes, and cover letters is important. So really understanding an employer's need and making the pitch of why you have those skills. So we do share that data. We don't try and be all sunshine and roses if that isn't the case, but we also don't want to dwell on it too much because then they can feel defeated before they get to the finish line. So it's a fine balance there. One thing that I can speak to in my college that we're really proud of, we have, as of the 23-24 catalog, academic speak, we now have a required 1 credit career class that all liberal arts and sciences students take in order to graduate. So we talk about personal brands. How do you articulate your values and strengths and skills to employers? How do you package those in application materials and interviews? What does networking look like? How do you manage the logistics of a job search? So we're really trying to give them those skills so that they can articulate who they are and what they bring to the table and put that in the language of employers, because a lot of NACE is our professional organization, the National Association of Colleges and Employers, and consistently longitudinally, there is that translation gap between the career competencies that employers say they want and how prepared they feel students are. And a lot of that's the soft skills that we were talking about earlier. And so we're really trying to help students to articulate those skills because I think they have them. We have wonderful faculty who are helping them develop those skills, but they don't always know to stop and reflect and put that into the language of workforce. So we're trying to coach them on that front to do that translation.
Okay, well, thank you. So we're running short of time. I probably have about 5 to 6 minutes left. So I'm going to jump to some round robin questions. So we know that attracting workers is important, but so is retaining them. So can each of you kind of briefly share one thing employers can do to retain their top talent? And Kathy, I'll start with you.
Yeah, definitely focusing on development opportunities. We are seeing an uptick in employment dissatisfaction in the workplace through our surveys. And so workers are still looking for work-life balance, work schedule flexibility, but development opportunities. So maybe I can't promote today, but what can I work on? Because there's, the hiring freeze and, we're locking down on positions, but how do I still work on my development to be able to move into those roles? So, and then connecting the purpose of their work to something broader than just what I do every day. And I think Kristi talked a lot about that at Athene, that is that broader view. So definitely connecting them with their managers, meaningful conversations around development.
Stephen, do you have any ideas?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love everything that Kathy said there. One of the things I really believe in is folks want to work in an environment where there are high expectations and high levels of support. And so being clear about what those high expectations are and how we believe we're going to get there together with appropriate levels of support helps retain the best employees.
Georgia.
I also said invest in them, and let them know that you want them to be there, help build their career. Same as you, Kathy, totally agree with that. But I would also say letting employees know that you appreciate them, which is such a simple thing. And it's not giving out awards or giving them money or things like that. But if somebody's staying late, let them know that you see that, at a time where probably a lot of employees are working a lot harder because companies aren't hiring, and I challenge my team with this, how are you thoughtfully recognizing your workers and making sure that they know how much you appreciate the work that they've been doing and how valuable they are to the mission that you're trying to accomplish.
Tessa.
Yeah, I'm going to put a report in the chat. Iowa Workforce Development, shout out to that team, did a really awesome report on retaining Iowa's talent about college students, and it's a 40-page, really in-depth, and so I really encourage employers in the business community to look at that because it's got such great data of like, this is what our college grads are looking for, and this is how we retain them in the state. So at Iowa State, we have seen an increase in those staying in Iowa for employment and continuing education. 21-22 was 45%, and then 48.9 and 49.8. So that's great, but brain drain's real. We have to make sure that our state is a place where people want to stay. And so that report is really worth digging into, but I think that's something I wanted to add.
Okay, thanks. Jamie?
Yeah, so obviously, attracting talent is important, but as you said, retention. And so we believe that people that work here are doing that more than for a paycheck. And so I think people in healthcare want a purpose. They want an organization that values that and really they can believe in. And I think with our outcomes, they can feel very proud that they're contributing to something, which is great patient care. And I think it's interesting because when we, somebody from our senior leadership team, culture is important to us. So somebody from our senior leadership team, every 2 weeks we have orientation. One of us is there meeting with the employees on the first day and spending 45 minutes with them, talking to them about who we are and what we do. And we ask people why they joined. And the number of times that people said, I have a friend that works here and they told me that they take really good care of their employees and I should come work here. Or number two, next highest is I was a patient here and it was such an awesome experience. I wanted to be part of that. So that's kind of how we approach that, is that we have to show people that we can be a place where they can live out their purpose and they contribute to that strong culture.
Okay. So Ben, if the economy continues to sputter, what sectors in Iowa might be most vulnerable?
Sure. Yeah, we are a little worried in the very near term that things will still be a little soft. I will say for 2026, we didn't cover this earlier, but I am pretty optimistic for next year that we have some good tax incentives. Hopefully, the weight of that economic uncertainty that has been weighing on things starts to lessen as we go into 2026. And so we are more optimistic we're going to see some improvements next year. I think sectors like the services area is still the strong area. And that's where you're going to see more of the job opportunities next year. We could see some reshoring, maybe we see some boost in manufacturing, but I would still really focus on the service sector as really the source of growth for the broader economy, but within Iowa as well.
Does anybody else have any thoughts on what sectors might be be vulnerable if the economy doesn't improve much? Hearing none, we're just about out of time, so I'm gonna go around and ask you sort of give us your closing thoughts or final takeaways for the job outlook for 2026. And Georgia, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I just think, and you've heard it from all the employers here, I think it's an opportunity for employers to really take some time to think about those unique ways that they can continue to build their pipelines, when they're not in such I need to have 50 people yesterday, so I don't have time to do that apprenticeship. I don't have time to work on the internship. So I think it's a good time to take a step to look at different unique ways that employers can build their pipeline when maybe they're not at such a crazy hiring time.
Okay, Jamie?
Great. I think I'm optimistic. I was actually, even though I shared all the challenges we had, I'm actually optimistic about 2026. And I think, I think our success and success for healthcare in our market is us being able to adapt quickly, staying true to who we are and our values and, competing for that talent.
Tessa?
I really echo Georgia that it's a time when you can maybe lean into those internship programs. I know when things get scary, that sometimes can be on the chopping block, but it's so important to build that early talent pipeline. And AI has kind of been sprinkled into the conversation, but we do see that hit on entry-level roles. But AI is not going to do away with mid-level and higher-level roles. So if we think only short-term and remove some of those entry-level positions or internship positions that can be automated, I think we are going to be shooting ourselves in the foot long term when we're looking for that mid-level and higher level talent because they haven't been able to get their foot in the door in those historical roles. So I think really continuing to invest in young talent is important to build that brand recognition. And one last thing, I think international students is also really an area where we have so many students that want to stay in Iowa, but unfortunately many of our employer partners are not willing to hire international workers on F1 or J1 visas. And so that is another really untapped population that we could be taking advantage of.
Okay, Stephen?
I think I just want people to know that K-12 public education community knows the role that we can play and the transformative force that we can have in making Iowa a better place for a workforce and educating that community. We know that we need to do a better job teaching soft skills. We know that we need to do more with work-based learning, and we know that we need to be opening up career pathways. We also know that it's hard to do it, and we need all the support we can get. And so if you're a business and you want to tap in like Iowa Clinic has with Waukee or John Deere and others have with West Des Moines schools, know that we need partnerships. And know as citizens, we need your support, we need your backing, and how we take care of K-12 education has a direct impact on the workforce of the future.
Okay, Kathy?
Yes. And so in addition to tapping into those apprenticeships and training programs, I think for those that are struggling to find the right talent, or maybe they have freezes on being able to add positions, keeping in mind that you can supplement your workforce with a contingent workforce to pull up or pull down to help you expand when you need to without that long-term commitment, can provide some relief for some of those tasks that you need completed. But then overall, again, focusing on retaining that top workforce through those upskilling opportunities, and really evaluate AI and how you are training your workforce to help you move forward in the AI space.
And Ben, any other closing thoughts or takeaways for 2026?
Yeah, like I said, we're more optimistic for next year. This year's been a little rough, and it could still be so for the next 3 to 6 months. But I think there are some better trends starting to form by middle part of 2026.
Great, thank you. Thank you all. And Chris, I'll turn it back to you to do some more housekeeping items.
All right. Thank you, Kathy, and thank you to all our panelists for your expertise today as we looked at the jobs market. Before we go today, I want to let you know just about a couple things coming up. You'll see some events on the screen on October 23rd next week. We've got our Fearless Forward event on October 30th, our Power Breakfast. We're going to be looking at the changing of the guard, a lot of leadership transition at the top levels of the community right now. So we're going to be exploring what the effects will be there. And then on December 4th, we'll be virtual for our Project 515, where we will explore housing, which of course intersects nicely with jobs as well. If you have any feedback on today, feel free to reach out. If you have story ideas, if something today sparked something that you think we should be writing about, reach out to Kathy. She's writing about workforce all the time, so feel free to reach out her direction. If you're interested in advertising with us and supporting the business record, you can reach out to Lawrence Cunningham. I want to thank again our HR Pro of the Year sponsor, Dentons, for making today possible. And of course, a final congrats to Kristi for being this year's HR Pro of the Year. Lastly, I know you can't hear the round of applause, but if you could in the chat or send them a note afterwards, thank our speakers today for giving their time to us for a little bit of their insight. Sometimes the things that they're sharing with us are the little bits and little seeds that help us just as we're going forward, trying to increase the strength of this community. There's a lot of levers when we're thinking about jobs and workforce. The panel today did a great job shining a light on a number of the different ways that we can be increasing our workforce here in the state. So a big thank you to each of our panelists for being here today and sharing a little bit of your wisdom. Again, my name is Chris Konetsky, president at BPC. If there's something that we can do for you that you think we at BPC can help you improve your business or improve the community, feel free to reach out directly to me. We'd love to talk to you. Have a great afternoon and continue to go out there and help make sure that workforce continues to increase. Thanks, everybody.